Let's test the state rule and corresponding closing rule that we just created. So I'm going to go back to assets and go to my specific asset, and you'll notice that the temperature of the asset, or more specifically the temperature of the tank that the tank car asset holds, has a value of 26. And we have a rule that says if the temperature rises above 40, then the rule fires and generates an event that uh, generates an action, which is sending an email. Once again, in a real system, you would have a tracker connected to a temperature sensor. The sensor will be feeding in actual temperature information into the tracker. The tracker would be publishing that information into our system. But in this case, I have some code that simulates the change in temperature. So let's take a quick look at our events, and you'll see that there are no events other than the ones we had generated when the area rule fired. So what I'm going to do is now run my code to simulate a rise in temperature. So here goes. I'm going to make the temperature of this tank 50. Here we go. And I will have to reload, and you'll see that the temperature has risen to 50. That means our state rule, the high temp rule, should have fired and generated an event. Let's see. An event did get generated, and it is open, and that means that I should see an email having been generated. And sure enough, there it is. Temperature too high, too hot. The email was generated. Now this time, instead of the user closing the rule by setting the closed event state, which can still be done, we're going to have the closing happen because of another rule firing. So what I'm going to do now is make the temperature go back down, but this time it has to go back down below 30, if you recall. Let me start off by making the temperature go back down to 32, and the original event should stay open. So let's try that. Okay, reload this. And you see that the temperature has dropped to 32. Let's look at our events. Nothing's changed. The original event is still open. And this time, I'll make the temperature drop to 26. So with that is below the 30. And now the closing rule should fire. The temperature has dropped below 30. The closing rule should fire. That would generate its own event, but it should also close the event that was already there. Let's take a look. So you see that the high temp rule event has been closed, and the not high temp rule event was generated and it closed itself. It was an event that did not have its own open and closed state, so it was closed to begin with. So that's how you can have a rule be closed by another rule. And once again, the closing rule, when it fired, it did not generate another email. That is how we expect it to work. So hopefully this tutorial showed you how to set up all the preliminary steps for creating area rules and state rules. And if you wanted to, you can have some of those rules be closed by a human being and have other rules be closed by closing rules.